If you watch this channel regularly, you'll know that one of the things I like to do is watch and review movies. If you were to know me a little bit better, you'd know that one of my favourite kinds of film is the Japanese-centric Tokusatsu genre, which I'll be explaining a little bit more about in a moment, because this is the launch episode of my new series Total Toku, which is going to be a series that covers a random Tokusatsu film or show every episode and talks a little about the history of the genre and how it came to be. Why am I launching this series now? Because I didn't get to go to the cinemas last weekend, but I did find my copy of Hentai Kamen, and you'll be damned if I'm not showing you people this beautiful discovery. Majestic. So what was that you just watched? That was a clip from Hentai Kamen, a 2013 movie with a limited theatrical release in Japan directed by Yuichi Fukuda. In Japanese, hentai means pervert and Kamen means mask, so the English title for this movie is, rather wonderfully, Pervert Mask. It follows the story of a young man who discovers that when he wears the underwear of women on his head, he magically transforms into the mighty superhero Hentai Kamen, powered by his own kinky titillation. And with this newfound might, he does battle with many an evildoer, from armed criminals to whatever this lad is supposed to be, and no, I'm not making any of this up. Adapted from the Shonen Jump comedy manga of the same name, Hentai Kamen exists within the almost Japanese exclusive genre of Tokusatsu, which is defined as any live-action film or TV drama that uses considerable use of special effects, often in a very particular, over-the-top and colourful style that most people associate with the genre. Tokusatsu is often most eagerly recognised by its three most popular forms. Firstly, there's kaiju movies. Kaiju means monster, or more literally, strange beast, and includes stuff like Godzilla, Gamera, or in some instances, Frankenstein. Kaiju films set the standard for Tokusatsu filmmaking when the original 1954 Godzilla used brand new filmmaking special effects techniques created by Tsura. This guy, who, within the limits of technology at the time, managed to get Japanese audiences to suspend their disbelief and become wrapped up in the spectacle of a giant monster smashing through Tokyo. The kaiju genre remains popular in Japan to this day and has started to seep out into Western culture with Godzilla reboots and films like Pacific Rim and Cloverfield all owing something to the original G. The second popular form are superhero serials. Superhero serials are exactly what you think they would be. Shows about a heroic protagonist or team of heroic protagonists taking on villainous enemies. Some of the most popular and influential shows in this subgenre include Kamen Rider and Super Sentai, which Western audiences who watched channels like Fox Kids when they were younger may recognise from their Western adaptations, Masked Rider and the Power Rangers. The cultural impact on Japan of series like this was huge, and often superhero TV serials like these shows would get big budget yearly release movies with crossover events, much like Marvel Studios' much acclaimed method of output now. The third popular type of tokusatsu are mecha dramas. Mecha dramas are less common but still supremely popular and often cross over into the superhero serials. These shows and movies focus on giant fighting robots battling equally giant monsters and other giant robots. Shows like Tetsujin 28 and Super Robot Red Baron fit this bill. Which brings us to the main point of this video, Hentai Kamen, a movie that revels in the tropes of tokusatsu superhero serials and even a little bit of mech drama to create a comedy satire that is as insane as it is entertaining. Traditionally, many people may even argue that this isn't a tokusatsu product. When most people interested in the genre think of tokusatsu, they generally go to the big hitters like Super Sentai and Godzilla, and with Hentai Kamen being adapted from an already existing manga, which is something you don't always get, it's easy to see why the confusion might be there. However, Hentai Kamen ticks all the same boxes as the mainstays of the genre, albeit in its own style. Transforming superhero? Yep. Lessons in life? Yeah, we got those. Hilarious, almost pantomime-like overacting? Seems so. Now I'm making this video because A, this is a subcategory of film I love that never really gets talked about outside of Asian territories, and B, you need to watch this movie. Let me just give you the cliff notes of some of the basic plot beats that happen in this film. This lad Kyosuke here is kinda weak and an all-round unremarkable guy. Born out of an unusual relationship between a now deceased masochist policeman and his dominatrix wife with unexplained whip-related superpowers, Kyosuke falls for Aiko, a new student at his school. When on her way home, Aiko is involved in a hostage situation, Kyosuke rises to the challenge of saving her in an attempt to win her heart. During a rather far-fetched series of events, Kyosuke somehow accidentally ends up putting women's underwear on his head when trying to disguise himself, which, and I'm not ad-libbing here, awakens his perverted blood, turning him into the hero we need but not the one we deserved, the masked Avenger who wears very little aside from his mask, Hentai Kamen, a superpowered sex fiend that battles evildoers with his overt presence and his magic dick. This sets him on a chain of events that sees him flying through the air, cock thrust magnificently forward like a nimble bodybuilder riding a cloud of explosions and joy, delivering mighty justice to the armed men with his athletic trunk titan. With this action, Kyosuke cements himself as a hero of the people, and when his school and Aiko come under continuous threat from a gang of evildoers and their equally insane masked assassins, Kyosuke must rise to the challenge of saving his school and Aiko, all the while dealing with balancing his double life and coping with the guilt of his taboo desires. It's fucking mental. An absolute embracement of the kind of batshit insanity that has to be seen to be believed. It's the kind of movie that could be created in Japan and only Japan, because seemingly, unlike Western cultures, this is a country that allows its media to be fun. Could you imagine trying to pitch such a concept to an executive producer for a Hollywood audience? Even if you were Spielberg, you'd get to saying, and then he unleashes a thunderous cockblender on the man who acts like a train's face, and you'd be shown the door quicker than if the building was on fire. And here's the thing, it's actually good. Really good. And not just in that, oh dude, Birdemic's such a good movie man kind of way, but in the, this is a well constructed and entertaining satire kind of way. You see, it's silly, but it's not stupid. There's a small difference in the two words, and parodies that are the former have been known to come out to great critical acclaim, whereas those that fit the latter do not. For every scene that's a bit, haha, Aunt Willie's funny, there's a well-written line poking fun at the tropes of anime and superhero conventions in ways that are far smarter than you'd initially think. It's one of those screenplays where nothing is wasted. Everything exists either to make you laugh, push the plot forward, develop a character, or instigate a high-concept, penis-based action sequence. This is a movie poking fun at the whole superhero genre and how willing we are to accept it at face value. Yes, it's completely ridiculous that putting a pair of panties on his head would turn this man into a superhero, but is such a notion really that much more bizarre than radioactive spider bite? Think about it, comic books are silly. This dude can shrink and communicate with ants. This woman can control plant life. He has a man dressed as a bat in a constant high-stakes battle with a circus clown. It's all beyond ludicrous, but you know what? That's okay. In fact, it's a lot of fun, and just because something's silly doesn't mean we can't take it seriously and get invested in what these crazy characters in their nonsensical world has to say about our own. Hentai Kamen gets this, and it takes it to the extreme. The film actually has a lot to say about relationships, the taboos of Japanese culture, and the guilt and discomfort a young generation could have about their sexual hang-ups and personal sexuality when growing up, in the foreground of a bizarre mishmash of cultural ideologies that could only exist in a country that's both conservative enough to censor its pornography, and yet liberal enough to then sell said pornography in a much celebrated 7-story tall sex shop in central Tokyo. It just so happens that Hentai Kamen manages to discuss these issues whilst also having scenes like this. Yes, what you just saw stems out of the same childish humour that finds the word boobies funny, but it's a refreshing change of pace from the usual superhero formula, especially if watched today when we live in a time period of cinema where Marvel and DC push out films on a bi-yearly basis, each one either a dark, gritty reimagining of a franchise or trying to sell the believability of its far-fetched characters into the somewhat real-world grounded setting of its cinematic universe. That's not to knock those movies. They have their own strengths, but Hentai Kamen is the movie to watch if you've ever once gotten tired of the way these films present themselves. It's not perfect by any means. Sometimes the CG looks absolutely dreadful and a few of the jokes are more gross than funny, but bear in mind this was originally meant to be a straight-to-DVD release, and yet it managed to get a limited theatrical run off the back of a gamble and ended up making 10 times its expected profit on this. And it also got the Audience Award at the New York Asian Film Festival and the Award for Excellence in Action Cinema. So that should tell you that though it's rough around the edges, the director did a wondrous job in bringing the best out of its extremely limited budget. It exists as an incredible curiosity of cinema that not only represents an interesting subgenre of film due to its tokusatsu roots, but now seems to provide humorous and insightful commentary on one of the biggest box office busting mega studios of our time. Don't just dismiss this as another one of those Japan things. Hentai Kamen is well worth checking out, insanity and all, and if you can get a hold of it with a bunch of friends, it's almost impossible to not find some fun in this bizarre production. I really recommend you give it a look. So that's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoy the idea for the new series. This is something I've always wanted to cover and I'll be doing more down the line, so give it a like to let me know if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you want to see more. If this is something you're into, feel free to suggest movies, shows or topics to cover. And if you're new to the channel, then feel free to check out some of my movie reviews and analysis, or check some of the older video game stuff. That kind of thing should be making a return to the channel soon. Or, myself and a friend currently do a really fun video podcast series chronicling the history of video game adaptations. We just recently released the 3rd episode of that and we're having a real great time with that show. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.